Shortly after that, I took a Spanish class at the Lakewood Adult Education on conversational Spanish, because I was going to prepare for this trip to the border that was going to happen sometime. And never went out to look for it. Sometimes things come around and knock on your door, I guess. In fact, it's funny, in that class was Laura Van Dale. So she's looking at me, she said, "Marie, why are you here?" And I said, "Because I want to help the border sometime." And I asked her, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And she said, well, her and the family were going to travel to Peru. So she was trying to prepare for conversational Spanish. And so it wasn't until the Presbyterian announced this trip. Let me see if that's the next one. Pilgrimage to the southern border in January, beginning from Plymouth, UCC Church. Everybody know what UCC stands for? United Church of Christ? My second favorite Presbyterian. So Brenda, who belongs, and I don't know, Anne, you don't belong to Plymouth, but Joanne does. Okay. The event was announced and sponsored by Plymouth United Presbyterian Church in Shaker Heights, and along with the Good Shepherd UCC Church of Sahuarita, Arizona. And they annually have this meeting on the common ground. And it's kind of basically to invite people from around the country to get together to work with and learn what people there are doing called the Samaritans, Lost Samaritans, and witness to their, why are you doing that? Is that what I wanted? No. Delicate. Lost Samaritans. So they work out of the Good Shepherd Church, or volunteer out of the Good Shepherd Church, as well as the other one we know about was, I'm going to have memory problems here. Southside Presbyterian Church in Tucson. Southside is an interesting church. I don't know if you are aware, some of you are old enough to know about the sanctuary movement. You know, this is 40 years ago, where John Fife co-founded, helping people from Guatemala, immigrants from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua make their way through the country in safety, because it was against the law to help them. And so the sanctuary movement was named that these churches would offer sanctuary to these migrants. Was it against the law? Oh yeah. John Fife was arrested several times. He's pastor emeritus right now at Southside Presbyterian Church. But he was just put on probation. In fact, when he talked to the judge about, I'm still going to go back and do this, and the judge just said, well, tell your parole officer. So he didn't serve time, but he was arrested and had to do parole. So probation. Yeah.
He was also elected moderator of the General Assembly.
Padre of the General Assembly. Okay. He's well known.
At one time, he was moderator of the entire General Assembly.
Cool, cool. That I did not know. Thank you, Steve. So we saw him at his church. What's that? What's next? And this is Good Samaritan in Sahuarita. That is the Reverend Dr. Randy Meyer. And he's been at that church for like 25 years. And so he's been working at Good Samaritan activities a long time. You can see he's also instrumental, but he's a good leader. Okay, that's a local picture. Oh, local. There should have been around 100 people there at this conference. I thought I would just get a picture of the crowd. And so our choices on this trip were to either, there were 6 choices, to go to 2 art museums, or take the migrant walk and look for migrants, because 3 vans let out with water, food, survival kits if we run into migrants. And they said that out by the wall, that generally there were 500 to 500 migrants that they would run into. They might go a couple times a week. We went and there was nobody, no migrants, because it was like 40 degrees and howling winds. And so we just went the path, saw the wall, and had snacks from the food that we brought, and learned a lot from our driver, Steve. Now, Steve with his long ponytail, and because we're by tribal lands of the Tohono O'odham tribe, who have been there 12,000 years, although in the United States their land had been cut in half. Makes sense, right? That's what our government does. And so they've been there all this time. And so I saw his long ponytail, and I wanted to politely ask, Steve, are you Native American here? I noticed your long ponytail. And I hope I don't offend any political people on a certain side, but he said, yeah, he's growing it, he'll cut it off when someone goes to jail. So this is the vehicle inventory that they have on each van. And notice the one, human remains documentation kit. In case they come across a deceased migrant, and they have, and when it comes to what they can do, their work is pretty much limited to assistance. They cannot transport any immigrants. That's what the Border Patrol is for, and that's what their satellite phone is for, is to call the Border Patrol if they come across migrants who either need, they can take them if they need hospitalization. They can carry them to the nearest, probably, Border Patrol station. But ordinarily they cannot transport any migrants. The Samaritans, the Border Patrol does that. So these are our list, if you can see them. Okay, so here's the wall. Here's the road to the wall. Used to be 10 feet high, it's now 30 feet high. And yes, it has breaks in the wall. There are breaks. And it's to let immigrants through, or asylum seekers through, because it's international law that we have to let asylum seekers in. The problem they're dealing with right now, I heard, is there's been a recent change in the status of asylum seekers and the requirements they need to be accepted. They need certain paperwork and documentation. Now, you can guess as far as I can that they're coming from violence and gangs and, climate change and wars, and they're supposed to know to bring a certain documentation so they will be accepted as a refugee. So that makes things more complicated for them. A little map I have has thousands, it should be in there somewhere, these red dots, thousands of sites where immigrants have died. Some of them are found later and cannot be identified.
Do they die of violence or starvation or?
The guess is water, lack of water, which is why one of the things the Samaritans do is put water jugs on a path for migrants who follow that path. And apparently it's old cattle trails is the path that they follow. And they put water in gallon jugs out there. And then there's the story of, on the tribal land, is Michael Wilson. He's a Presbyterian pastor and in the Army, and retired veteran, and part of the Special Forces. And he was putting out these 12-gallon things of water that were being shot. And the thing is, it was believed it was the Border Patrol shooting them. Okay, next. So simple landscape, desolate, and then the cross. So this was where a particular child, infant, baby, was found dead and was buried there. It's right on the wall road. And there is a heartbreaking poem that someone wrote in 2015. September 19th, 2005, a baby boy was born and died. Can I read it there? No, can't read it there either. You may wonder, I should put my glasses. No matter how many times I ask, you do not answer my question. You leave me with only this. 10 years ago, you birthed a baby along an Arizona roadside. What created this child? Love or rape? I ask, did you leave for a better life? For both of you, more safety, less dirt floors, broken glass, hunger, move north, no money, take a chance, start alone, promise money later, start with a lover, no promise. You do not answer my questions. No matter how many times I ask, you do not answer. Instead, you walk, walk, walk. Thirst, hunger, tire, walk further. No birds, no shade, no water. Drink your urine, your body rebels, you fall, struggle, now alone, now always alone. No matter how many times I ask, did the road look like a good place? Maybe help, maybe water. Had the pains begun faster and faster? Did you stop, lie down, try not to scream? Try not to push when the small body slid between your legs? Blood and water, no breath, cord around its neck, you hold your tongue. I ask, did you cut the cord? Take the knife you carried, separate yourself from that small bundle of unbreathing flesh? Did you take diapers from your backpack, wrap this babe born on borrowed land, leave it for animals or someone? You cannot answer this. No matter how many times I ask, you cannot answer. Did you hold this bundle of death, weep, and tell about the life that might have happened? Work, play, school, laughter, ice cream, toys, baseball? Did you share under the stars that night when you were there? No angels, shepherds, or magi? Only endless dark silence, the smell of blood and death. So we're talking about a situation that's humanly heartbreaking. I mean, one can argue about the politics and how to solve this. In talking to John in his church, he said there is no one answer because this is a worldwide phenomenon. There are immigrants leaving countries for all these different reasons, failed economies, failed governments, war, hunger, climate change. It's just an endless series of problems that they encounter. So they want to leave for a better life. Here we have Michael Wilson, our pastor, veteran, special services man. He has going to have a book out soon, and that's supposed to be the title. And he's going to tell a story. At one point, though, with these shot-up water basins, he was told by his tribal leaders not to do it anymore. Because apparently, naturally, there's a connection between tribal government and the United States. So if you've got threats from the Border Patrol on the tribal lands, what to do or what not to do, or there's going to be consequences. The tribe told him to either cease putting out this water or leave. He has a martyr story to tell as well. Raymond Mattia was shot 9 times on the tribal lands by the Border Patrol. And the Border Patrol claims that there was a domestic call that they got. There was no domestic call. So there's a poem about Mattia. Okay, this is Namali Brennett, and she's a musician, she's a trans woman, and she told us some stories, and that's the music I have playing. And it's kind of ballad-like, but she writes the music to poetry. In fact, this particular CD is called Tree of Life. And she has used American poets, Walt Whitman, E.E. Cummings, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, as the words for the songs that she writes. And of course, being a transgender woman, I looked her online to just find her story a little more. And she was 8 when she started realizing something's not right. Just something's not right. So she's had a long struggle. She's in her 50s now. She lives in Iowa. She was born in Canada, so she travels giving these concerts and performances, and her music is just ethereal. I just love it. One thing she shared in the process to get to the goal she wanted and felt was right was the thousands of dollars she had to pay for electrolysis. Now, think about that. It's like, you gotta go through pain, among other things, in order to get where you want to. So she was very impressive, and I applauded the church for having, UCC Church is very inclusive. They became more inclusive than us way back when. So I always admired that about them. Okay, next. Okay, we have our artist in residence. No memory, and that is Sister Liga Macias. So there she is performing like a flute, Peruvian flute. If you've heard music playing on a Peruvian flute, it's really, really wonderful. And she was also an artist in residence for some of the artwork that was displayed for us to participate on. And it included lots of things that didn't get on this program, but got pictures somewhere. Okay. This is Melissa Del Basco. Melissa Del Basco is an investigative journalist, and she's been, bemoaning the fact that there's, 20,000 less journalists now than there were 20 years ago. And she decided to report from the border. So she covers 2,000 miles of the border, sharing stories and things that she finds. I have some copies over there. She puts out on email a chronicle. So there's that over there if you would like that. Next. Okay, here's the poetry. Who killed Raymond Mejia? It was fear who bought the bullets. It was racism and who loaded the gun. It was hatred who pulled the trigger. Okay, next. So there also was a gathering of locals for arts fair and sales, and we have some things over there. I have one thing, and Joanne brought several things that you can see over there from this arts fair. And I had to include on that when I talked to Brenda. Brenda's an artist, and she has made this stole. You'll see that over there. I hope you take the time to look. It is of immigrants, the immigrant story, the desert story, and it is just gorgeous, just gorgeous. So please take a look at those artifacts from the locals. And when I say locals, it's not like Lakewood. I mean, you're talking about an area of the country where the tribes are there, and Mexicans and the Spanish were there. So there's a lot of colors there, and it's nice to see. Those are our projects from that fair that we could buy. And this is Margaret Cowan, and she was public defender of Pima County, which includes Tucson. Oh, mentioning Tucson, let me just tell you what Tucson means. It means black bottom. And that refers to the tribal name when they're describing the colors of their mountains. So the bottom of the mountains are basalt, and then the top of the mountains are a lighter color. So Tucson comes from the word black bottom. Also, what's interesting about Tucson is as I was driving, I was told that the mountains around Tucson have different varieties of snake, and there's no same snake in all these mountains. One snake brand to a mountain. So there's different snakes on different mountains, and I guess never did the twain meet. Okay. This is their pulpit area at Good Samaritan, and the items there, which I didn't know at first, were items taken and collected from the wall. And you wonder, well, gee, how messy are these people? They're leaving their stuff all over the place. No, the board Border Patrol does not allow them to take anything. If you think about the Border Patrol picking up these people in various places, and they've got their backpacks and their blankets and this, that, and the other, and the Border Patrol tells them to leave it. They cannot take anything with them. In fact, I think it's the Border Patrol that then picks up everything as garbage and then eliminates it. But these are some things that the Good Shepherd Church Samaritans had collected and have on display. Okay, some of the artwork, some of the people doing that. Next. That might be on the table over there from Joanne. Next. Okay, got to do some traveling, and this is one of the two missions that are there from the 1700s. Now this is in, decay, and it's called, I have to write it down because it's Tomacorsi National Park. So it's not a worshiping church, but they're planning to renovate it. Next picture. Same thing from this mission, and then the next one. And that's a mission that's working, and that is San Javier del Bac mission. In fact, they have a whole grounds of area of, what do they call it, the adobe structures that have been there for, several thousand of years that you can give a tour. And the interesting thing about that is the orchard. They have an orchard there. And when they were renovating the area at one time, a wall was in disrepair. And when they're cleaning it up, they came across a seed pit. Apparently it was a peach pit. And they thought to themselves, this had to be growing here at one time. So they made an investigation into all the missions in the area about what they were growing or had grown in their orchards, and they replicated that with that information so that the orchard here replicates what was there, 300 years ago. Okay. A little of the downtown area for the saguaro cactus. Again. I think this was a shopping area that was, of course, made up with Mexican tribal adobe decorations. We did some shopping there. Love the pig. And three of us, I couldn't get all our picture there, but that was a lovely big cactus. And so that was the hope to capture some of us in there because the big picture didn't get in. Okay. Oh, and here we have Anne. I took several pictures of us inside, but they didn't move over. So I had the one of Anne that I had to show. And this is where we stayed. Canoa Golf Course Golf Resort. Lovely place. You can do the next one. Lovely place we stayed at. They even had a pool that they said it was heated. So if I'm walking outside in 40-degree weather and hoping the water was really, really warm, it was not really, really warm. I did a couple of walks to do my exercise, and I was. And I think that's the last slide. So in a couple of minutes, I've got pictures here I can show and I'll put out. This is inside the Mission Aviar, and their icons and decorations are in wood. They're painted in wood. Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you. The Southside Presbyterian Church of John Fife, where he's Pastor Emeritus, they had to build a new church. And again, you're talking about a community that's tribal and Mexican. So they got them all together and said, what do you want the church to look like? And they decided to make it into a tribal akiva. So I took several pictures, but just brought one when I went and moved over. But very, all wood, very interesting. Inside the renovated church where they worship, Mission Javier del Baco. Same church from the outside. The artwork that didn't move over, that was finished at Good Shepherd. And these large, I don't know if they were canvases or what, that people painted. I think it was Sister Nika who had done the drawings. Am I right about that, Brenda? You did not. Okay, I have with that. Oh, and here's all of us that would not move over. There were 9 of us. 2 of the people were a couple who wintered down in Tucson, near family. So they were part of the group as well, and they were there. And I do have handouts over there, donations, if you wanted to get involved with that or look at it, of the things they use or could use to use in the area. They have shelters that have been created on the Mexican side, and that's one of the places, one of the destinations for the Samaritans is to help out at the shelters and bring things that they need. They have 120 families. They have several marriages that happen, which is kind of cool. And so that's one of the destinations we could choose from. The art museums, the migrant memorial walks, the migrant shelter visit, which was down in Dallas, and that's what you needed a passport for. I did get a passport, but never got into Mexico, so I didn't need it. One trip, which was canceled, was called Cafe Justo, Just Coffee. And they have these collectives by the farmers for the coffee production there that they pick, produce, ship, wrap at $3 a bag. And because they're a collective, they can pay each other a fair wage, which is 30% of the cost of their coffee. It's probably another source that we could order coffee from if we wanted. The Desert Water Drop, but it was the Desert Migrant Search that I went on, where it was 40 degrees and blowing. I think that's all I have. I did get to the art museum. Part of my dilemma when I signed up for the trip was, art museum, I love art museums. Some of you who are on my Facebook know I love art museums. I've got art pictures, all of them. And, but I didn't want that to be my experience. I wanted to be on the ground, helping out. Yes, Susan?
I just have, you mentioned that there are tribal lands. Are there interactions between the tribal lands and the people who live on the tribal lands and the people who live along the border, but who are not part of the tribe?
I would guess yes. I would guess yes. That they don't remain exclusively on tribal lands. Although a comment was made that tribal peoples have kind of given up their home cooking and that they're eating a lot of prepared foods now, and that 30% of the people there are all overweight. I don't know how that process transpired, but yeah. Susan? Oh, you're putting your coat on. Jeff?
You mentioned that one of the trips was two things. One was a desert water drop.
Yes.
And then the other one was like a shelter on the other side of the border.
Yes.
Can you explain what those two things, what's going on with those?
Well, the water drop is supplying water along known routes the migrants take.
So those are gallon jugs that's going on?
I'm not sure, but yes. Now, I know there have been displays of the 12 big blue gallon thing. I don't know who really works with that, but that's what they were putting out by a mic on tribal lands. That got shot up. And the other one was, what did you say the difference?
On the other side of the border, the camps on the other side of the border to prepare them to come across.
Oh, the migrant shelters, yes. Those are the ones that have applied to, come to the United States. They're staying in Mexico like they were ordered, and they have to reside there, which might take 7 years before their papers are approved for them to cross over. So they stay there and live, and get married, meet other people. Yeah.
Yeah, On Facebook, I found a fellow named Scott Hicks, who's an immigration attorney. And boy, the things that he relates are scary. It's a wonder anyone gets to immigrate. The whole system's pretty inefficient, judges-wise, paperwork-wise, and everything. And he seems to be so frustrated with it, I can see why. It's pretty hard to get immigrated into the U.S.
It is. The public attorney mentioned that one of the solutions is to get more attorneys to work with the immigrants, because 90%, believe it or not, when there's so many immigrants, 97% of them are turned back to Mexico. But those are people without attorneys. 70% of the immigrants that have an attorney do make progress. The need for more attorneys, and it pays for that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know they need more judges. I didn't know about, more attorneys. Yeah. Any other questions? Steve?
Yeah, Maria, I would just like you folks to know that I volunteer at God International Youth Development Academy in the Clark District, and in the 3rd grade class, 10 of my 25 kids are Hispanic. They come from Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Peru. This is not as far away as the border. If you'd like to come to my school and talk to these children, they did not come here to sell drugs. They do not rape, they do not kill, and many of them walked 1,000 miles to get here. They are survivors, and they are very inspirational to me. And they have learned far more English in a year than I will ever learn Spanish in a year. So it's not as far away as, I think. They live in Clark, that area around, and they're becoming American citizens.
Good story. There were some notes I had I was going to refer to based on that. But I don't have it at my fingertips. Ooh, one second. Are there other questions before I find something at my fingertips? Questions? It was a 5-day trip. Yeah, January 15th to January 20th this year. And Brenda organized it so well. We just had to read the instructions, and check off our list. So, which reminded me, checking off my list when I had to make the choice I was saying before and take the migrant walk. I really wanted to do art museum, but with my begging and pleading, I got to the art museum anyway. So that worked out well. There's some pictures here. Because you go to an art museum in Tucson, it does not look like CLE here. It's full of Native Americans and cowboys and, just different things in mass that they produce. And it was a treat. Brenda?
May I
Yes.
do a plug? Randy Mayer and the Good Shepherd Church have been doing Common Ground on the Border, offering that to churches and to folks across the country now for over 15 years. They've got this nailed. And what they've got it nailed to is making sure that folks who come to this event have opportunities to talk with and to explore experiences that are diverse and provide lots of information, but also just stories. And we'll be doing it again this coming January. It always happens over Martin Luther King weekend, and so look on your calendars and you'll know when we'll be taking off again. It's an open invitation to folks in the churches. We'll get the word out. We're hoping to get the word out a little earlier next year. We were just in a meeting this morning talking about that. There is no better way to raise the right questions than to experience it directly. And that's what Common Ground on the Border is all about. It is non-political. It is simply saying, here's where we live, this is what we want you to see so that you can go home and see some of the same things in your communities and respond. Because if we don't If you don't understand what's going on, you don't know how to respond. And so Common Ground at the Border will be happening again next year.
And it reminded me, during the children's sermon today, they talked about being witnesses, and I'm thinking, that's what we were. We were there witnessing what the people are doing, and what the people they're witnessing for, are doing. Jane.
Did you ever have a chance to talk to any of the people who are like working there and what their viewpoint is of all of this? I mean, because that treatment seems very harsh, and what is their philosophy, or how do we actually look at these people who are coming and need the help? Are they, any of them, sympathetic toward them, or any of them really wanting to do something to make a difference in their life? Do they recognize this horrible experience to get here?
That the whole area is organized. Churches, community centers, people are doing, and I think one of the joys is being able to talk with people who live there, and people from not only from Good Shepherd Church, but from all the other organizations that form liaisons and say, okay, yesterday we were down on the border and this is what we experienced, so when you go tomorrow, make sure you take coats, or make sure that you have diapers, because there's a whole lot of women with children and no diapers. Those kinds of things. But there are also people who are very organized in trying to speak to our country and the way border is concerned, is considered the transportation. It involves people knowing what's going on, that they can help in the same way that the people who live there are working every day. There are people from the communities down at the border trying to make things safer and more humane.
This talk today illuminates that. See, we don't get this. We don't realize that there are so many people who live in the area who are trying to do something to help these people.
That's right.
So we don't know this. And so we just get what you hear on the news.
We are given the information that a bunch of criminals are coming in to do us wrong. That's what we know about immigrants, right? We need to do a complete shift in order to see folks face to face, talk with them, and then see how the community is welcoming them as strangers. And that is very inspiring. It's a trip of joy with lots of images that will haunt you for a long time. But it's a good trip.
And Melissa, our investigative journalist, said that the conservative radio, the media, has taken over. They've hijacked the immigration issue to where they're only perpetuating, fear-mongering and threats and violence that it's coming north, and that's just not true. So this is another form of meeting. Again, a copy of one of her Border Chronicles are there if you want to. You can also subscribe to have the email at no charge. It comes twice a month from the Border Chronicles. And one thing I forgot to mention, because the picture didn't come through, was Southside Church with John Fife has created another organization called Death No More. And that wasn't on one of the pictures either, because it didn't go through. Death No More is setting up camps here and there along the border on the American side. There's tarps, there's tents, there's food, there's bottled water. It's there for, respite, to recover from wherever they came from and have a place to immediately go to. But that's Death No More, another group helping out. Hey, it's noon. I don't think I left anything out. Except what they left out, but thank you. Any more questions before we wrap it up and say, it's almost gone? Thank you,
Thanks, Ernie.
thank you, Joanne, thank you, Ann, thank you, Brenda, thank you, everyone, for being here.